So welcome to Supporting Skills for Women Innovators. Our focus today is on medicine and pharmaceutical medicine. This event is supported by UNESCO and Empire Code Lovesback. Through this regional training, we hope to enable students and women to participate in innovative projects, develop creative industry, contribute to local and national economic development, as well as nurture technopreneurship and business incubators. This project is part of the wider effort in implementing the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals, known as SDGs. In particular, we have a focus on goals 4, 9, and 17. It's so great that you have joined us today. My name is Lorraine and I'm your speaker for today. I am the manager for Empire Code Lovesback. I hold postgraduate certifications in special needs and counseling. Prior to joining Empire Code, I was working with elderly with mental health issues. And before doing that, I was teaching teenagers, mostly children between the ages of about 7 to 16, but most of my students were teenagers with dyslexia. So my first exposure to programming started about 10 years ago with JavaScript, and I became interested in teaching computer science to children and helped to firm up the preschool computational thinking curriculum at Empire Code. Okay, this is our webinar agenda for today, but before I go into the webinar agenda, we are going to start a poll because I want to hear from you also. And there will be polls after each section throughout this webinar. So you should see a poll come out. The first one, what do you expect from this training? Is it career growth? Would you like to gain more knowledge on UNESCO's SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals? Are you here for general knowledge? Are you interested in how technology can support women innovators? Or are you here to just simply learn more about innovation and you have a particular interest in innovation in the medical and pharmaceutical sector? And number 2, what do SDGs stand for? Question 3. How many more years do we have to reach the SDGs? I'll be going to SDGs in detail, so we haven't mentioned how many more years, but those of you who are familiar with UNESCO's SDGs, you may know this, and for those who are not sure, just give it a try. And how many years do you think? Question 4, what do you think are efficient methods to promote women in science? Do you think that the best way is through case studies, classroom trainings, e-learning platforms, online webinars, press articles, social media content, or train-the-trainers programs? The answers, the responses are coming in. This is really, really interesting. And how would you rate your technical skills? Do you think that you are beginner, basic computer literacy, intermediate, you're familiar with office softwares, advanced basic computer programming skills, or expert, I can build my own website and or mobile app? Okay, so more than half of you have participated, so I'm just going to end the poll now. And I'm going to share the results with everyone. So this is really interesting. What do you expect from this training? 62% of you are very interested to learn more about how technology can support women innovators. So we have very, very interesting content for you coming up. What do SDGs stand for? That's right, Sustainable Development Goals. How many more years do we have to reach the SDGs? 9 years, and that is correct. We have 9 years to accomplish SDGs. And what do you think are efficient methods to promote women in science? E-learning platforms, 85%. And then train-the-trainer programs, I agree. 69%. Train-the-trainer programs is the best way to empower communities because you are empowering the community to then pass the knowledge forward to the students, and it becomes this very beautiful domino effect. Thank you so much for participating in our first poll for today. Okay, so I'm just going to go through our agenda. So we'll start off looking at SDGs, known as Sustainable Development Goals. Why should we care about these goals and what our focus goals for the day will be? And next, of course, we're exploring a really exciting topic, women in innovation. We'll be looking at focus sectors and industry innovation trends. And thereafter, we will explore the educational component. And after that, we will have an interaction session. And we will provide additional reading materials and additional free training materials for you to explore on your own. And lastly, there will be time for questions, for answers. If you have at any point of time throughout this webinar, I won't be able to answer your questions, but we have an amazing moderator, Eric, who will be answering your questions. So feel free to just type into the chat box. And lastly, we will have a short survey and a certificate of attendance, which will be handed out upon completion of the survey. So let's look at Introduction to SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the SDGs are 17 goals to transform our world. It is a call for all countries, poor, rich, and middle income, to protect the planet and promote prosperity. It is a recognition that ending poverty must go hand in hand with strategies that build economic growth as well as address social needs. And these social needs include education, health, social protection, and job opportunities. And these strategies must be implemented hand in hand with environmental protection. And above all, these goals provide a very important framework for COVID-19 recovery. Now, why should we care about the SDGs? They are so important precisely because they empower people, the economy, and they drive societal changes. Compared to 10 years ago, people are living much better lives and have better access to quality healthcare, work, and education than ever before. However, inequalities and climate change threaten to undo these benefits. So investing in inclusive and sustainable economies can open many opportunities for shared prosperity. So as long as we care to make an impact, political, technological, and financial solutions are within reach. And yes, please check out hashtag for people for planet. Now, these are our focus goals for the day. Goal 4, education. Now, in 2020, as COVID-19 spread across the world, most countries temporarily closed schools, and school closures affected more than 91% of students all over the world. By April 2020, almost 1.6 billion children and youths were out of school, and 369 million children who relied on school meals had to look for alternative sources for daily nutrition. So education is our primary focus because it enables social economic mobility. Now, a social economic mobility, or the definition here for social mobility, is the movement of individuals, families, or groups of people between different levels in society. So it is a change in a person's social status compared to their previous social location. In the past 10 years, major progress was made as more children had access to education and school enrollment increased, especially for girls. However, in 2018, 260 million children were still out of school. That's about 1/5 of the global population in that age group. And half of all children and teenagers worldwide are not meeting minimum proficiency standards in reading and math. So if we're looking at very quickly, the definition of proficiency is when a person has the skill set in order to accomplish a certain task. Goal 5, gender equality. So this is achieved when women, men, girls, and boys have equal rights and opportunities, the power to shape their own lives and contribute to society. To push for sustainable development, empowering women and promoting gender equality is extremely important. Ending discrimination against women and girls is a basic human right that has a positive impact on a country's development in all areas. Thankfully, there has been wonderful progress over the last few decades. More girls are going to school. Fewer girls are forced into early marriages. More women are serving in parliament and in leadership positions. And also, laws are being formed to push for greater gender equality. Just to go through some definitions here, empowerment, which is one of my favorite words, is the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. It's when you know that you have full responsibility over your life. And like a sculptor molding a clay, you can direct your life in the course that you want it to go on to. And the second word, discrimination. It's the act of making unjustified distinctions between human beings based on the categories to which they are perceived to belong. An example, such as gender discrimination. Just to end off on this slide, it's important to note that the pandemic has threatened the safety of women worldwide. There has been a huge increase in violence against women during lockdowns, and many women do not have access to social welfare and mental health assistance. So this reminds us that gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls is more important goal now than ever before. Goal 9, industries, innovation, and infrastructure. I just want to go through the definitions briefly. So industries, a group of manufacturers or businesses that produce a particular kind of goods or services. Innovation is the action or process of making changes in something established, especially by introducing new methods, ideas, or products, which is why we always see innovation go alongside with creativity, because you need the creativity in order to come up with innovative solutions. And infrastructure, physical structures and facilities such as buildings, roads, power supplies, electricity cables, it's needed for the operation of a society or enterprise. So innovation and technological progress are key to finding lasting solutions to both economic and environmental challenges, such as increased resource and energy efficiency. Globally, investment in R&D as a proportion of GDP increased from 1.5% in 2000 to 1.7% in 2015, and remained almost unchanged in 2017, but was only less than 1% in developing regions. So we need to figure this out on how to increase this in developing nations. Goal 17, partnerships for the goals, because your SDGs can only be realized with strong global partnerships and cooperation. So a successful development agenda requires inclusive partnerships at the global, regional, national, and local levels, built upon principles and values and upon a shared vision and shared goals, where the people and the planet is at the core and they are at the center. And now we come to women in innovation. So this is UNESCO's commitment. UNESCO is committed to technology and innovation for gender equality. And over the next 5 years, UNESCO will increase access for girls and women to digital skills and competencies, STI and STEM education opportunities, including engineering, computer science, and informatics, to ensure gender equality in emerging STI fields such as nanotechnologies, engineering for the SDGs, and artificial intelligence. UNESCO will provide access to STEM education to at least 2,000 girls per year in Africa through hands-on microscience. They will enable at least 2,000 women physicists per year globally under a program, Physics Without Borders, to take leadership roles among relevant university research programs. UNESCO will advance the scientific careers of young women scientists and give visibility to their scientific work in all related fields of technology and innovation through its partnership with L'Oréal UNESCO Women in Science program and the Organization for Women Scientists in Developing Countries. They will support member states to review their national STEM education systems from a gender perspective, develop, monitor, and evaluate gender transformative STI policies and systems, particularly in Africa. UNESCO will support member states to close the digital gender divide, promote universal digital literacy, and ethical use of AI that is free of gender bias and stereotypes through the implementation of the global recommendation on the ethics of AI. And UNESCO will invest $24 million US. Now, this is a beautiful video by Dr. Fardelsi Cardri. She's the 2020 L'Oréal UNESCO Laureate for Asia Pacific. She was awarded for her outstanding work in understanding and preventing infectious diseases affecting children in developing countries, promoting early diagnosis and vaccination with global health impact.
I'm Fardelsi Cardri. I'm a Bangladeshi, born here, brought up here. Every breath in me is Bangladeshi. I started off as a biochemist, so I was very based in research. One day I was sitting in the lab very close to the hospital, so I could hear the cries of the cholera patients, and I felt so incompatible, and then I thought, what am I giving back to my country? Especially when I look at the misery that people face in the slums. And so I went into applied immunology. So my work specifically is on mucosal immunology and vaccinology. I carry out clinical trials with new vaccines, and I try to understand the natural immune response. So when someone is sick with cholera or typhoid, for example, what are the proteins or the polysaccharides that give immune response? Vaccination is a tool that has been used for hundreds of years. But one problem has emerged is that children in developing countries, when given the vaccine, don't respond as well as other people in developed countries. So we work on trying to understand how does an adult respond to a vaccine in Bangladesh? How does it compare with someone in the USA or someone in France or someone in Sweden? 30–40% of the population in Dhaka city are living in highly densely populated areas. So there's malnutrition, repeated infection, high morbidity. Children are always sick due to cholera, diarrhea, rotavirus, something or the other. By the time a child is 2 years old, the child has had at least 10 different diseases. Children are not thriving as well as they should because of so many infections. My goal in life is to have vaccines and to have better lives for people. So right now, we have many of our dreams almost coming true. We have the Col kit and also Colvax, the oral cholera vaccine, which has now been produced in Bangladesh. These will be available locally, and when the world wants it, it will be available globally. In the next 3 to 5 years, I would like to see important vaccines being used in our national immunization system. The rotavirus vaccine, the cholera vaccine, the typhoid vaccine, and when available, the ETEC diarrhea vaccine. That is what I want to achieve, at least in the next 5 years. And having more people coming up to do these things in Bangladesh.
Doctor.
Doctor. Oh. Creating the awareness. Many dreams still.
I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did. Okay, now we are going to focus sectors. Now, our focus sector is healthcare. Of course, today, medicine and pharmaceutical medicine. So a career in medicine can be very rewarding. You make a difference to people's lives because you help to alleviate pain and suffering. There are over 60 specialities in medicine alone, which means there are plenty of opportunities in teaching, research, and management. As a doctor, you are a well-respected profession. So pharmaceutical medicine is a medical specialty concerned with research, development, and monitoring of new medicines. Pharmaceutical physicians are involved at every stage of the drug development pipeline. They use their expertise to advance pioneering medicines and ensure they are effective for patients. But how can one be innovative in this sector? So we are going to look at these 3 innovators in healthcare. The first one, Charles Hall, Chief Technology Officer and entrepreneur, popularly known for inventing 3D printing. So 3D printing was first used for medical purposes as dental implants and custom prosthetics in the 1990s. And 3D printing is also used to produce customizable prosthetic limbs that can better fit the patient's needs, as well as medical and laboratory equipment. This reduces the waiting time spent on receiving medical equipment from external vendors and reduces the cost of surgery. In surgery, 3D printing technology is a very important pre-operative tool so that mock surgeries can be executed. And a 3D model of the patient's anatomy can be studied, thus improving overall precision during surgery. And in 2012, a jaw was 3D printed. Dr. Frederick Mould, our second innovator, medical device developer and entrepreneur, best known for Intuitive Surgical, which invented the Da Vinci surgical system. So if you're very curious about robotics and surgery, do look up the Da Vinci system. I thought it was very interesting as well. Frederick Mould is known as the Bill Gates of surgical robotics. So Intuitive Surgical is a market leader for their invention of the Da Vinci surgical system. So it's a robotic system that performs minimally invasive surgery. It has been used to perform surgeries such as thyroid cancer removal, prostate removal, gastric bypass, and to name a few. And in the past 15 years, almost 2 million surgeries in the United States were executed through robotics. And lastly, this is a really exciting one for me. Aviat Kaufman, Shaul Gelman, and Professor Carmel Rothschild, scientists, inventors, and entrepreneurs, best known for real view imaging, pioneers in the field of interactive live holography. So if you're very, very interested in holograms and holography, and particularly holography in the medical field, do check out real view imaging. So these innovators, they developed the Holoscope Eye, which is the world's first medical holographic system. So doctors are able to view 3D in-air holograms of a patient's anatomy. And these holograms are interactive. So doctors are able to touch the image, they're able to make markings on the holographs, and it gives them a better view of parts that were not clear in initial scans. And so it has greatly improved surgical outcomes. Now, as you can see, there are a myriad of different job roles and specialities available in this sector. I have to read out one by one because what they are doing a transcript, so that's why you would find that I'm reading everything out for the transcription. So I'm going to start with the far left column. So medicine doctors, you have anesthetists, cardiologists, clinical radiologists, general practice doctors. Although for clinical radiologists, we will go through this particular role in detail, because later on we'll learn about something called, for those of you who are not familiar, it's called deep learning, and how the role of the radiologist is going to change over the next few years. And then you have your hospital doctors, your neurologists, ophthalmologists, pathologists, psychiatrists, surgeons. And within the medical field itself, you also have clinical scientists, epidemiologists who investigate patterns and the causes behind diseases, international aid workers, medical sales representatives and medical science liaisons, mental health nurses who work hand in hand with the psychiatrists, midwife, naturopaths, which is a personal favorite because it encompasses many different types of holistic therapies, nurses, paramedics, physician associates, research scientists, science writers. And in pharmaceutical medicine, depending on what your passion is and what calls you in your field of study, you can be involved in clinical trials, engineering, lab-based R&D, operations. Pharmacovigilance is also an interesting one. It's the science of assessing and preventing adverse effects that could be caused by medicines and vaccines. Production, quality assurance, quality control, regulatory affairs, sales and marketing, as well as validation. And now we are going to have an overview, and then we will go into each innovation trend in detail. So these are the biggest innovation trends in artificial intelligence, big data, blockchain, cloud computing, which most of us are very familiar with. If you are not familiar with cloud computing, then we hope that this information that we're about to share will be useful for you. Internet of Things and robotic process automation. Now, education overview for artificial intelligence, AI. So AI is replacing conventional, labor-intensive and time-consuming processes in healthcare with rapid, remotely accessible and real-time solutions for diagnosis, treatment, and disease prevention. Software platforms, application programming interfaces, APIs, and digital products are being developed to extend the benefits of AI. And some of the applications of AI in healthcare include advanced surgery assistance, clinical workflow management, and medical diagnostics. So let's watch a video about AI, and we will learn what is AI? What is the difference between AI, machine learning, deep learning, and some examples of AI.
Picture this, a machine that could organize your cupboard just as you like it, or serve every member of the house a customized cup of coffee. Makes your day easier, doesn't it? These are the products of artificial intelligence. But why use the term artificial intelligence? Well, these machines are artificially incorporated with human-like intelligence to perform tasks as we do. This intelligence is built using complex algorithms and mathematical functions. But AI may not be as obvious as in the previous examples. In fact, AI is used in smartphones, cars, social media feeds, video games, banking, surveillance, and many other aspects of our daily life. The real question is, what does an AI do at its core? Here is a robot we built in our lab, which is now dropped onto a field. In spite of a variation in lighting, landscape, and dimensions of the field, the AI robot must perform as expected. This ability to react appropriately to a new situation is called generalized learning. The robot is now at a crossroad, one that is paved and the other rocky. The robot must determine which path to take based on the circumstances. This portrays the robot's reasoning ability. After a short stroll, the robot now encounters a stream that it cannot swim across. Using the plank provided as an input, the robot is able to cross this stream. So, our robot uses the given input and finds the solution for a problem. This is problem solving. These three capabilities make the robot artificially intelligent. In short, AI provides machines with the capability to adapt, reason, and provide solutions. Well, now that we know what AI is, let's have a look at the two broad categories an AI is classified into. Weak AI, also called narrow AI, focuses solely on one task. For example, AlphaGo is a maestro of the game Go, but you can't expect it to be even remotely good at chess. This makes AlphaGo a weak AI. You might say Alexa is definitely not a weak AI, since it can perform multiple tasks. Well, that's not really true. When you ask Alexa to play Despacito, it picks up the keywords play and Despacito, and runs a program it is trained to. Alexa cannot respond to a question it isn't trained to answer. For instance, try asking Alexa the status of traffic from work to home. Alexa cannot provide you this information, as she is not trained to. And that brings us to our second category of AI, strong AI. Now, this is much like the robots that only exist in fiction as of now. Ultron from Avengers is an ideal example of a strong AI. That's because it's self-aware and eventually even develops emotions. This makes the AI's response unpredictable. You must be wondering, well, how is artificial intelligence different from machine learning and deep learning? We saw what AI is. Machine learning is a technique to achieve AI, and deep learning, in turn, is a subset of machine learning. Machine learning provides a machine with the capability to learn from data and experience through algorithms. Deep learning does this learning through ways inspired by the human brain. This means, through deep learning, data and patterns can be better perceived. Ray Kurzweil, a well-known futurist, predicts that by the year 2045, we would have robots as smart as humans. This is called the point of singularity. Well, that's not all. In fact, Elon Musk predicts that the human mind and body will be enhanced by AI implants, which would make us partly cyborgs.
So now we are going to look at the impact of AI on these 6 different categories. So the first one, consumer devices. Number 2, how can AI reduce costs? Number 3, the impact of AI in diagnostics. 4, healthcare bots. 5, treatment advancement. And 6, virtual health assistants. Okay, I'm just going to go through the first one first, which is consumer devices. Now, Apple Watches can check your heart rate. They can perform an electrocardiogram test and check for atrial fibrillation, which is a heart condition that causes irregular heart rates. Cheap and simple sensors attached to watches and smartphones, and later even smart glasses, will be able to sample our sweat and blood glucose levels. Our breath will be sampled and digitized and can be used to detect cancer or potential health problems. Our phone cameras will scan for skin cancers, and their microphones will capture data about our voices to assess our mood or even provide diagnosis of conditions such as Parkinson's disease or schizophrenia. So with more of these devices, patients can take on some of the responsibility for their own healthcare. The second one, cost reduction. AI has the potential to improve health outcomes by 30 to 40% and reduce the cost of treatment by as much as 50%. Improvements in precision and efficiency means fewer human errors, leading to a decrease in doctor visits. And doctors are also able to get information from the data for patients who are at risk of certain diseases so that they can prevent hospital readmissions. On a much larger scale, according to Healthcare IT News, AI applications can save us billions of dollars. So to give an estimate on what these potential cost savings are, AI can save us up to $40 billion in robotic assisted surgery, $20 billion in virtual nursing assistance, $17 billion in fraud detection, $14 billion in connected machines, $3 billion in automated image diagnosis, and $2 billion in cybersecurity. And the third one, diagnostics. Very often we see newspapers reporting that machines have proved themselves more capable at diagnosing a disease better than doctors and radiologists. So naturally, this has led to speculation about machines taking over the jobs of human medical staff, especially radiologists. So back in 2016, Geoff Hinton, if you're interested to learn more about him, he's known as the father of deep learning. His name is Geoff Hinton, Geoff, Hinton, Hinton. And he did say that people should stop training radiologists now because he believes that within 5 years, deep learning is going to do better than radiologists. So that's just something to think about. Number 4, healthcare bots. Now, bots for healthcare exist mainly for patient engagement. So healthcare bots are found in your mobile messaging apps, and they can help patients quickly and in real time by sending messages. Health chatbots can answer health-related questions. They can help patients manage medications by providing information on types of medicines and recommended doses. So some advances made in healthcare bots include the ability to learn and mimic human conversations, to detect emotions so that they can communicate with patients with more compassion and empathy, and to also incorporate natural language processing, sentiment analysis, and concept mining into chat scripts. Number 5, treatment advancement. Now, AI is leading to advancements in healthcare treatment, such as improving the organization of treatment plans and analyzing data to provide better treatment plans and monitoring of treatments. So AI can quickly and more accurately identify signs of disease in medical images also, such as MRI, CT scans, ultrasounds, and X-rays, and allows for faster diagnostics. This greatly reduces the time patients wait for a diagnosis from weeks to just a few hours and accelerates the treatment plan. And lastly, for this AI section, we have virtual health assistants, VHAs. So VHAs can help patients in many ways. For example, VHAs can help patients with dementia stay on track with their prescribed medications by sending reminders. And moreover, virtual health assistants can also give advice on treatments for common medical conditions, or even provide recipes for patients with specific diet restrictions. They can also monitor patients based on data, allow doctors to engage with patients in pharmacies to remind patients of prescription refills, pickups, and even recommend preventive health screenings. Now, say you are really interested in AI, you want to know more about the impact of AI in the field of healthcare. So these are some recommendations. We have AI for everyone, as well as AI for medicine specialization, both offered by deeplearning.ai on Coursera. AI Foundations for Everyone specialization, offered by IBM on Coursera. AI in Healthcare Specialization, Stanford on Coursera, and Learn with Google AI, offered by Google Education. Additional learning materials. This is This is a very interesting one. Elon Musk on AI. Causability and Explainability of Artificial Intelligence in Medicine by Wiley. Demystifying AI in Pharmacy, Oxford Academic. Transforming Healthcare with AI, the Impact on the Workforce and Organizations, McKinsey and Company. And what is artificial intelligence exactly by Cold Fusion? Okay, we have come to the end of the section for AI, and so we are going to have a poll because I want to hear from you. So I'm going to launch the poll now. So I want to hear what you think. Has your interest on AI for innovation increased? And do you think AI will take over the world? Okay, I am just going to end the poll now, and I'll just share the results with everyone. So yes, very happy to know that your interest in AI for innovation has increased. And this is really interesting. It's quite close actually. So 55% of you believe that yes, AI will take over the world, and 45% of you say no. Thank you for participating in the poll. Now we're going to look at big data. Now, data is crucial for making all kinds of decisions. So data refers to stored information and recorded operations which were performed by the computer in various forms. Big data is the same data, but present in massive amounts and numbers. This consists of information provided by both humans and their devices. Big data is so large and complex in size and storage that it is unable to be deciphered and understood efficiently by traditional data management tools. So big data has changed the way we manage, analyze, and leverage data across industries. And one of the most notable areas where data analytics is making big changes is in healthcare. In fact, healthcare analytics has the potential to reduce the cost of treatment. It can predict outbreaks of epidemics. I mean, given what has happened to COVID-19, unfortunately, we will be experiencing future epidemics and pandemics. That's inevitable. Avoid preventable diseases and improve the quality of life in general. The average human lifespan is increasing across the global population, which poses new challenges to today's treatment delivery methods. So health professionals, just like business entrepreneurs, are capable of collecting massive amounts of data and to look for the best ways to use these numbers. So in this video, we will understand the difference between what is big data and what is data, types of data, structured, unstructured, semi-structured data, structured versus unstructured data, and what is the difference between machine-generated data and human-generated data, and examples of machine data.
Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to stay updated with Knowledge Hut.
Hello and welcome to Knowledge Hut. In this video, let's learn about what big data is and how it's classified. Let us begin by defining the term data. If you do a quick Google search, then you'll find that data is defined as the qualities, characters, or symbols on which operations are performed by a computer, which may be stored and transmitted in the form of electrical signals and recorded on magnetic, optical, or mechanical recording media. In simple words, we can say that all the facts and figures which can be stored in digital format can be termed as data. All the text, numbers, images, audios, videos stored in our phones and computers are some examples of data. They are all digitally stored and comprised of zeros and ones. Please remember that data is a plural term. The singular term for data is datum. The concept of big data is nothing complex. As the name suggests, big data refers to copious amounts of data, which are too large to be processed and analyzed by traditional tools. Since the amount of big data increases exponentially, more than 500 terabytes of data are uploaded to Facebook's database alone in a single day. It represents a real problem in terms of analysis. So you may be thinking that if this big data is so problematic, then why is everyone so obsessed about it? Well, the answer lies in the benefits it provides. Here are some real-world examples of the ways in which big data is used. Netflix collects user behavior data from its more than 100 million customers. This data helps Netflix in understanding what every individual customer wants to see. Based on the analysis, it recommends movies and TV shows which the viewer will love to watch. As a result, the customer is happy because he is getting what he likes without even searching for it. And Netflix is happy because it has delighted its customers, which will result in higher customer retention. Credit card companies collect and store the real-time data of when and where the credit cards are being swiped. This data helps them in thwarting fraud detection. Suppose a credit card is used at location A for the first time. Then, after 2 hours, the same card is being used at location B, which is 5,000 kilometers away from location A. Now, it is practically impossible for a person to travel 5,000 kilometers in 2 hours, and hence it becomes clear that someone is trying to fool the system. These were just 2 examples. Big data has hundreds of different applications in hundreds of different fields, be it banking, communication, healthcare, media, advertising, manufacturing, transportation, and retail. Big data can be used everywhere, and this is why more and more businesses are trying to harness its power. Classification is essential for the study of any subject. So big data is widely classified into 3 main types, which are structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data. Structured data. Structured data is used to refer to the data which is already stored in databases in an ordered manner. It accounts for about 20% of the total existing data and is used the most in programming and computer-related activities. There are 2 sources of structured data: machines and humans. All the data received from sensors, web logs, and financial systems are classified under machine-generated data. These include medical devices, GPS data, data of usage statistics captured by servers and applications, and the huge amount of data that usually move through trading platforms, to name a few. Human-generated structured data mainly includes all the data that humans input into computers, such as names and other personal details. When a person clicks a link on the internet or even makes a move in a game, data is created. This can be used by companies to figure out their customers' behavior and make the appropriate business decisions and modifications. Unstructured data. While structured data resides in the traditional row-column databases, unstructured data is the opposite. They have no clear format in storage. The rest of the data created, about 80% of the total, account for unstructured big data. Most of the data a person encounters belong to this category, and until recently, there was not much to do except storing it or analyzing it manually. Unstructured data is also classified based on its source, machine-generated or human-generated. Machine-generated data accounts for all the satellite images, the scientific data from various experiments, and radar data captured by various facets of technology. Human-generated unstructured data is found in abundance across the internet, since it includes social media data, mobile data, and website content. This means that the pictures we upload to Facebook or Instagram handle, the videos we watch on YouTube, and even the text messages we send, it all contributes to the gigantic heap that is unstructured data. Semi-structured data. The line between unstructured data and semi-structured data has always been unclear, since most of the semi-structured data appear to be unstructured at a glance. Information that is not in the traditional database format as structured data, but contains some organizational properties which make it easier to process, are included in the semi-structured data. For example, no SQL documents are considered to be semi-structured, since they contain keywords that can be used to process the document easily. Big data analysis has been found to have definitive business value, and its analysis and processing can help a company achieve cost reductions and dynamic growth. So it is imperative that you do not wait too long to exploit the potential of this excellent business opportunity. This was all about big data and the types of big data. Don't forget to subscribe to Knowledge Hut for more such informational videos.
So now we're going to look at the education impact of big data in these areas. I'll just go through the list one by one. I'll just go through the list and then we'll go into each area in detail. So you have cancer cure research, developing new therapies and innovations, electronic health records, enhancing patient engagement, medical imaging, real-time alerting. I'm very passionate about mental health. So number 7, suicide and self-harm prevention. And lastly, supply chain management improvements. So let's look at cancer cure research and how big data has impacted this area. So an interesting example of the use of big data is the Cancer Moonshot program. So those of you who are interested in cancer cure research, it's the Cancer Moonshot program, MOONSHOT. Before the end of his second term, President Obama came up with this program, but that had the goal of accomplishing 10 years worth of progress towards curing cancer in half that time. So medical researchers can use large amounts of data on treatment plans and recovery rates of cancer patients in order to find trends and treatments that have the highest rates of success in the real world. For example, researchers can examine tumor samples in biobanks that are linked up with patient treatment records. And using this data, researchers can see things like how certain mutations in cancer proteins interact with different treatments and find trends that will lead to better patient outcomes. And this data can also have unexpected benefits. For example, they found that desipramine, which is an antidepressant, has the ability to help cure certain types of lung cancer. However, in order to make these kinds of insights more available, patient databases from different institutions, such as hospitals, universities, and nonprofits need to be linked up. Then researchers could access patient biopsy reports from these different institutions. Number 2, developing new therapies and innovations. Big data analysis in healthcare has the power to assist in new therapy and innovative drug discoveries. So they use a mix of historical, real-time, and predictive metrics, as well as a cohesive mix of data visualization techniques. These healthcare experts can then identify potential strengths and weaknesses in trials or processes. Moreover, through data-driven genetic information analysis, as well as reactionary predictions in patients, big data analytics in healthcare can play a pivotal role in the development of groundbreaking new drugs and forward-thinking therapies. Number 3, electronic health records. Goodbye paper saving trees. This is the most widespread application of big data in medicine. Every patient has his own digital record, which includes demographics, medical history, allergies, laboratory tests. And these records are shared via secure information systems and are available for providers from both the public and private sectors And every patient record is comprised of one modifiable file, which means that doctors can implement changes over time with no paperwork and no danger of data replication. And these electronic health records can also trigger warnings and reminders when a patient should get a new laboratory test or track prescriptions to see if a patient has been following doctor orders. And although EHR is a great idea, many countries still struggle to fully implement them. The USA has made a major leap with 94% of hospitals adopting EHRs, and this is according to high-tech research. A company known as Kaiser Permanente is leading the way in the US. They have fully implemented a system called Health Connect that shares data across all of their facilities and makes it easier to use EHRs. Number 4, enhancing patient engagement. So many consumers and potential patients already have an interest in smart devices. And some of you may already have been using these smart devices. They record every step that you take. It records your heart rate, your sleeping habits, and so on. And all this vital information can be joined with other trackable data to identify potential health risks. So, for example, if somebody suffers from chronic insomnia and an elevated heart rate, this can signal a risk for future heart diseases. And this is great because patients, not just patients, but consumers, such as ourselves, we are all directly involved in the monitoring of our own health. So there are other new wearables under development that also track specific health trends and relay them to the cloud, where doctors can monitor them. So patients suffering from asthma or blood pressure could benefit from this. It increases their independence and reduces unnecessary visits to the doctor. Number 5, medical imaging is vital, and each year in the US, about 600 million imaging procedures are performed. Analyzing and storing these images manually is expensive, both in terms of time and money, as radiologists need to examine each image individually, and hospitals need to store them for up to several years. Medical imaging provider Carestream explains how big data analytics for healthcare could change the way images are read. So algorithms developed analyzing hundreds and thousands of images could identify specific patterns in the pixels and convert it into a number to help the physician with the diagnoses. They even go further, saying that it could be possible that radiologists will no longer need to look at the images, but instead analyze the outcomes of the algorithms. So this would greatly impact the role of radiologists, their education, and the required skill set. Number 6, real-time alerting. So another example of data analytics in healthcare shares one crucial functionality, real-time alerting. So in hospitals, clinical decision support, CDS software, analyzes the medical data on the spot and provides health practitioners with advice as they make prescriptive decisions for patients. However, doctors want patients to stay away from hospitals to avoid costly in-house treatments. So analytics, already trending as one of the business intelligence buzzwords in 2019, can be part of this new strategy. Wearable devices will continuously collect patients' data and send the data to the cloud. Institutions and hospital care managers can use sophisticated tools to monitor this massive data stream and react every time the results show disturbing outcomes. So for example, if a patient's blood pressure increases alarmingly, the system will send an alert in real time to the doctor, who will then take action to reach out to the patient and administer measures to lower the blood pressure. Number 7, suicide and self-harm prevention. Now, globally, almost 800,000 people die from suicide every year. Plus, 17% of the world's population will self-harm during their lifetime. And this is the area of mental health is a very difficult area to tackle. However, big data users in healthcare are helping to make a positive change concerning suicide and self-harm. As entities that see a wealth of patients every single day, healthcare institutions can use data analysis to identify individuals that might be likely to harm themselves. So in a 2018 study from KP and the Mental Health Research Network, a mixture of electronic health records data and a standard depression questionnaire identified individuals who had a higher risk of attempting suicide with great accuracy. So utilizing a predictive algorithm, the team found that suicide attempts and successes were 200 times more likely among the top 1% of patients that were flagged according to specific data sets. So this essential use of big data in the healthcare industry is testament that medical analytics saves lives. And lastly, for this section, we have supply chain management improvements. So if a medical institution's supply chain is weakened, everything else is likely to suffer, from patient care and treatment to long-term finances and beyond. That said, use of big data in healthcare focuses on the value of analytics to keep the supply chain fluent and efficient from end to end. Leveraging analytic tools to track the supply chain performance metrics and make accurate data-driven decisions concerning operations as well as spending can save hospitals up to $10 million per year. Now, you have an interest in big data and healthcare. Where do you get started? So these are some resources that we hope that you will enjoy and have a look at. Applied Data Science with Python Specialization, offered by University of Michigan on Coursera. Big Data Specialization by UCSD on edX. Data Science Specialization, Johns Hopkins University on Coursera. Introduction to Big Data, also offered by University of California, San Diego on Coursera. An Introduction to Data Science offered by Metis. These are some additional learning materials, benefits and challenges of big data in healthcare, an overview of the European initiatives by National Center for Biotechnology Information. Big Data Tutorial for Beginners by Edureka. Big Data and Healthcare, Management, Analysis, and Future Prospects by Springer Open. The Role of Big Data in Medicine, McKinsey and Company, and How Big Data Can Make Big Impact. Findings from a systematic review and a longitudinal case study by ResearchGate. And that's the end of our section for big data, which means it is poll time. So I've just launched a poll. Do you think understanding big data is important? And number 2, I'm curious to know how many of you would like to learn computer programming to analyze big data? That's wonderful. Almost half of you have already participated. So I am just going to end the poll now. The results are extremely promising. Yes, you think that big data is important. That is a unanimous yes, 100%. And this is very exciting as well because all of you would like to learn computer programming to analyze big data. And now we are going to move on to our next section, which is blockchain. Now, blockchain is a system of recording information in a way that makes it difficult or impossible to change, hack, or cheat the system. So a distributed ledger or blockchain is a highly secure database. It securely stores and accurately records data. Now, blockchain has a wide range of applications and uses in healthcare. The ledger technology facilitates the secure transfer of patient medical records, manages the medicine supply chain, and helps healthcare researchers unlock genetic code. So this is a really, really good video for explaining blockchain. It uses wonderful visuals. I hope you enjoy this. In this video, we will understand what is blockchain, how does it work, and why blockchains are so special.
Blockchains are incredibly popular nowadays. But what is a blockchain? How do they work? What problems do they solve? And how can they be used? Like the name indicates, a blockchain is a chain of blocks that contains information. This technique was originally described in 1991 by a group of researchers and was originally intended to timestamp digital documents so that it's not possible to backdate them or to tamper with them, almost like a notary. However, it went by mostly unused until it was adapted by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009 to create the digital cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Now, a blockchain is a distributed ledger that is completely open to anyone. They have an interesting property. Once some data has been recorded inside a blockchain, it becomes very difficult to change it. So how does that work? Well, let's take a closer look at a block. Each block contains some data, the hash of the block, and the hash of the previous block. The data that is stored inside a block depends on the type of blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain, for example, stores the details about a transaction in here, such as the sender, receiver, and the amount of coins. A block also has a hash. You can compare a hash to a fingerprint. It identifies a block and all of its contents, and it's always unique, just as a fingerprint. Once a block is created, its hash is being calculated. Changing something inside the block will cause the hash to change. So in other words, hashes are very useful when you want to detect changes to blocks. If the fingerprint of a block changes, it no longer is the same block. The third element inside each block is the hash of the previous block. And this effectively creates a chain of blocks, and it's this technique that makes a blockchain so secure. Let's take an example. Here we have a chain of 3 blocks. As you can see, each block has a hash and the hash of the previous block. So block number 3 points to block number 2, and number 2 points to number 1. Now the first block is a bit special. It cannot point to previous blocks because, well, it's the first one. We call this block the Genesis block. Now let's say that you tamper with the second block. This causes the hash of the block to change as well. In turn, that will make block 3 and all following blocks invalid because they no longer store a valid hash of the previous block. So changing a single block will make all following blocks invalid. But using hashes is not enough to prevent tampering. Computers these days are very fast and can calculate hundreds of thousands of hashes per second. You could effectively tamper with a block and recalculate all the hashes of other blocks to make your blockchain valid again. So to mitigate this, blockchains have something that is called proof of work. It's a mechanism that slows down the creation of new blocks. In Bitcoin's case, it takes about 10 minutes to calculate the required proof of work and add a new block to the chain. This mechanism makes it very hard to tamper with the blocks because if you tamper with one block, you'll need to recalculate the proof of work for all the following blocks. So the security of a blockchain comes from its creative use of hashing and the proof of work mechanism. But there is one more way that blockchains secure themselves, and that is by being distributed. Instead of using a central entity to manage the chain, blockchains use a peer-to-peer network and everyone is allowed to join. When someone joins this network, he gets a full copy of the blockchain. The node can use this to verify that everything is still in order. Now, let's see what happens when someone creates a new block. That block is sent to everyone on the network. Each node then verifies the block to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with. And if everything checks out, each node adds this block to their own blockchain. All the nodes in this network create consensus. They agree about what blocks are valid and which aren't. Blocks that are tampered with will be rejected by other nodes in the network. So to successfully tamper with a blockchain, you'll need to tamper with all the blocks on the chain, redo the proof of work for each block, and take control of more than 50% of the peer-to-peer network. Only then will your tampered block become accepted by everyone else. So this is almost impossible to do. Blockchains are also constantly evolving. One of the most recent developments is the creation of smart contracts. These contracts are simple programs that are stored on the blockchain and can be used to automatically exchange coins based on certain conditions. More on smart contracts in a later video. The creation of blockchain technology piqued a lot of people's interest. Soon others realized that this technology could be used for other things, like storing medical records, creating a digital notary, or even collecting taxes. So now you know what a blockchain is, how it works on a basic level, and what problems it solves. Want to learn how you can implement a simple blockchain in JavaScript? Then check out this video here. And as always, thank you very much for watching.
Now we're going to look at the education impact of blockchain in the healthcare sector. In these areas, number 1, clinical trials data quality and reliability. Number 2, medical staff credential verification. 3, securing patient data. 4, supply chain transparency. And 5, inventory management. So let's go and look at the first one. In detail, clinical trials data quality and reliability will improve with blockchain integration. The decentralized nature lets the clinical labs use a transparent, immutable data source where it is not possible to hamper the data. The clinical trial data is stored in the public blockchain where you can verify the data whenever needed. It is tamper-proof, and the clinical labs can completely trust the data to carry out the results of their trials. The pharmaceutical companies can also use the system to convince more patients and help them to participate in the trials. And more so, pharmaceuticals can also track and trace the data using the technology. The next one, medical staff credential verification. This is similar to tracking the provenance of a medical good. Blockchain technology can be used to track the experience of medical professionals, where trusted medical institutions and healthcare organizations can log the credentials of their staff, in turn helping to streamline the hiring process for healthcare organizations. US-based company ProCredX has developed such a medical credential verification system using the R3 Corda. R3 Corda, C-O-R-D-A, if you're interested to look into this more, it's the R3 Corda blockchain protocol. And number 3, how does blockchain secure patient data? Keeping our important medical data safe and secure is the most popular blockchain healthcare application at the moment. And security is a major issue in the healthcare industry. Between 2009 and 2017, more than 176 million patient records were exposed in data breaches. The perpetrators stole credit card and banking information, as well as health and even genomic testing records. Blockchain's ability to keep a corruption-free, decentralized, and transparent log of all patient data makes it a technology ideal for security applications. Also, while blockchain is transparent, it is also private, as it can hide the identity of any individual with complex and secure codes, thus protecting the sensitivity of medical data. Number 4, supply chain transparency. A major challenge across the healthcare sector is ensuring the provenance of medical goods to confirm their authenticity. So using a blockchain-based system to track items from the manufacturing point and at each stage through the supply chain enables customers to have full visibility and transparency of the goods they are buying. This is a top priority for the industry, especially in developing markets where counterfeit prescription medicines causes tens of thousands of deaths every year. And it is also very important to authenticate medical devices as well as drugs. MediLedger is a leading example of a blockchain protocol that enables companies across the prescription drug supply chain to verify the authenticity of medicines, such as expiry dates and other important information. So if you're interested in looking up, it's called MediLedger, M-E-D-I, Ledger, L-E-D-G-E-R. And lastly, for this section, inventory management. So with proper integration of the supply chain, pharmaceutical companies can manage their inventories better. The inventory can also be automated to create triggers when there is a supply or demand scenario. For example, if there's a spike in demand, then it can simply alert the system on demand, requesting more drug production. Also, pharmaceuticals can track and trace every stage using the technology. So how do you get started if you're interested in blockchain and healthcare? We have some materials for you. Blockchain specialization by University of Buffalo on Coursera. Blockchain technology, UC Berkeley on edX. Blockchain Theory 101, this is an interesting one, offered by Melanie Swan on Udemy. Blockchain, understanding its uses and implications, offered by the Linux Foundation on edX. An introduction to enterprise blockchain, offered by 101 Blockchains. Additional learning materials, application of blockchain technology in healthcare, a comprehensive study by National Center for Biotechnology Information. This is something that many of you may be interested in. It's very pertinent to what we're all going through. Blockchain and Pandemics by the Blockchain Research Institute. This is a good one too. Blockchain explained in just under 100 words by Deloitte. Blockchain technology in pharmaceutical industry to prevent counterfeit drugs by ResearchGate. And a research on medical system based on blockchain technology by Lippincott Journals. And now we are going into cloud computing. Now, advances in computing power have allowed the medicine and pharmaceutical sector to store and use data effectively. With cloud services, we have scalable software that can be accessed anytime, anywhere. Companies with offices globally are able to share the same system, making data sharing very efficient. Now, edge computing, where the computing happens right where the data is collected, not in the cloud, has also grown. Faster networking technologies such as 5G cellular network technology are allowing for edge computing systems to accelerate the creation or support of real-time applications, such as video processing and analytics. Edge computing enables doctors to deliver care to remote areas where connectivity may not be great and skilled healthcare personnel may not be available. It offers the ability to process data locally and provide clinical decision support to even low-skilled healthcare workers. Quantum computing. Now, when quantum computing is fully adopted, it will catapult our computing power exponentially. Quantum computers perform calculations based on the probability of an object state before it is measured. quantum computers will be able to provide services and solve problems that were not possible with traditional computers. There will be tremendous value in the medicine and pharmaceutical industry with such capabilities. So in this video, we'll understand what is cloud computing, the advantages of cloud computing. How is cloud computing different from traditional web hosting? And in the second video, we will understand what is edge computing and what devices are impacted by edge computing.
Technically, most of it is in cable under the ocean, but, well, no, you get the idea. The internet is synonymous with the cloud. At the consumer level, it usually refers to photo, video, or document storage, like iCloud, OneDrive, or Dropbox, that can be accessed from anywhere. But cloud computing actually refers to anything that involves delivering services over the internet, as opposed to hardware or software installations on individual devices. It all divides into three services: platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and software as a service. Platform as a service is a model in which a third-party provider hosts app development platforms and tools on its own infrastructure, available to customers over the internet. PaaS models are used for general software development. Infrastructure as a service providers host servers, storage, and other individualized resources over the internet. IaaS offers a variety of storage and memory options for any workload need. And most commonly encountered at the consumer level, software as a service is software distribution from a third-party provider, making applications available over the internet, like Microsoft Office 365 for productivity and email, or Salesforce and NetSuite for enterprise use. A cloud can be public, selling services to anyone on the internet, or private, supplying services to select individuals. Offerings include Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, IBM Cloud, and Google Cloud Platform. In the end, all cloud services share the same goal: to provide easy, scalable access to resources and services. Specific benefits include self-service provisioning, elasticity, pay-per-use, workload resilience, and migration flexibility. Technically,
what is edge computing and why it matters? Edge computing is exactly what it sounds like: computing that takes place at the edge of corporate networks, with the edge defined as the place where end devices access the rest of the network, things like phones, laptops, industrial robots, and sensors. The edge used to be a place where these devices connected so they could deliver data to and receive instructions and download software updates from a centrally located data center or the cloud. Now, with the explosion of the Internet of Things, that model has shortcomings. IoT devices gather so much data that the sheer volume requires larger and more expensive connections to data centers and the cloud. The nature of the work performed by these IoT devices is also creating a need for much faster connections between the data center or cloud and the devices. For example, if sensors and valves at a petroleum refinery detect dangerously high pressure in the pipes, shutoffs must be triggered as soon as possible. With analysis of that pressure data taking place at distant processing centers, the automatic shutoff instructions may come too late. But with processing power placed local to the end devices, latency is less, and that round-trip time can be significantly reduced, potentially saving downtime, damage to property, and even lives. Even with the introduction of edge devices that provide local computing and storage, there will still be a need to connect them to data centers, whether they are on-premises or in the cloud. For example, temperature and humidity sensors in agricultural fields gather valuable data, but that data doesn't have to be analyzed or stored in real time. Edge devices can collect, sort, and perform preliminary analysis of the data, then send it along to wherever it needs to go, to centralized applications or some form of long-term storage, again either on-prem or in the cloud. Because this traffic may not be time-sensitive, slower, less expensive connections, possibly over the internet, can be used. And because the data is pre-sorted, the volume of traffic that needs to be sent at all may be reduced. So the upside of edge computing is faster response time for applications that require it, and slowing the growth of expensive long-haul connections to processing and storage centers. The downside can be security. With data being collected and analyzed at the edge, it's important to include security for the IoT devices that connect to the edge devices and for the edge devices themselves. These devices contain valuable data, but there are also network elements that, if exploited, could compromise other devices that contain stores of valuable assets. With edge computing becoming more essential, it's also important to make sure that the edge devices themselves don't become a single point of failure. Network architects need to build in redundancy and provide failover contingencies in order to avoid crippling downtime if a primary node goes down. The industry has already gone a long way toward addressing the demands of edge computing, and it's becoming mainstream. Its importance is likely to grow even more as the use of real-time applications becomes more prevalent.
So let's look at the impact of cloud computing in these areas in the healthcare sector. The first one, access to high-powered analytics. Number two, accessibility of data and applications anywhere. Number three, the ease of interoperability. Number four, lowering of costs. Number five, patients' ownership of data. And number six, telemedicine capabilities. Now, access to high-powered analytics. Healthcare data, both structured and unstructured, is a huge asset. Relevant patient data from different sources can be collated and computed in the cloud. The application of big data analytics and artificial intelligence algorithms on the cloud-stored patient data can power up medical research. And with the advanced computing power of the cloud, processing of large data sets is more achievable. Performing analytics on patient data can also allow healthcare providers to formulate more personalized care plans for patients on an individual basis. Cloud-based data analysis is also very useful when extracting relevant patient information. Accessibility of data and applications anywhere. So one of cloud computing's best features is the fact that it allows your team to work from anywhere. And this is obviously very useful for staff who work remotely. It gives them complete access to the system. And the value of remote access has become especially clear since 2020, when COVID-19 drove many companies to close their doors and send staff home. Number three, ease of interoperability. Now, interoperability is a big word, but like any big words, if you cut them out, it's actually really, really simple. So what is interoperability? Now, inter comes from the word interconnect, international. It means across. Opera comes from operate and ability. So interoperability simply means the ability to operate across the system. So in the context of cloud computing, it means integrating all the data throughout the healthcare system, regardless of where the data is stored. As a result of interoperability fueled by cloud adoption, patient data is readily available for distribution and gaining insights to facilitate healthcare planning and delivery. Cloud computing allows healthcare providers to gain easy access to the patient data collected from numerous resources, share it with the important stakeholders, and give out timely prescriptions and treatment protocols. Having the patient's data in the cloud also promotes interoperability among the various segments of the healthcare industry, such as the pharmaceutical industries, the insurance companies, and online payments. Number four, lowering of costs. The basic premise of cloud computing is on-demand availability of computer resources, like data storage and computing power. Hospitals and healthcare providers are freed from the need to purchase the hardware and servers outrightly. There are no upfront charges associated with cloud storage of data. You only pay for the resources you actually use, which results in massive cost savings. Number five, patients' ownership of data. So cloud computing democratizes data and gives patients control over their own health. It encourages patient participation in decisions regarding their own health and leads to informed decision-making by acting as a tool for patient education and management. Also, patient records and medical images can be easily archived and retrieved when storing data on the cloud. And while cloud security remains a concern, the reliability of cloud for data storage is definitely higher. Data redundancy is reduced with an increase in system uptime. And since the backups are automated and there isn't a single touch point where the data is stored, recovery of data becomes much simpler. And the last impact for this section that we are looking at, telemedicine capabilities. So remote accessibility of data is possibly the biggest advantage that cloud storage of data offers. The combination of cloud computing with healthcare has the potential to improve a number of healthcare-related functions, such as telemedicine, post-hospitalization care plans, and virtual medication adherence. It also improves access to healthcare services through telehealth. Telemedicine apps add the element of convenience to healthcare delivery. We're upgrading the patient experience. So these cloud-based telehealth systems and applications allow easy sharing of healthcare data. They improve accessibility and provide healthcare coverage to the patients during the preventative, treatment, and recovery phase. Now, how do we get started? If you're interested in learning more about cloud computing and healthcare, so we have business considerations for edge computing offered by the Linux Foundation on edX, Cloud Computing Concepts, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign on Coursera, Getting Started with Cloud Computing Level 1 offered by Idan Gabrieli on Udemy, The Quantum Internet and Quantum Computers, How Will They Change the World? Delft University of Technology on edX, and Understanding Edge Computing in a Cloud Computing World offered by LinkedIn Learning. Additional learning materials, an effective training scheme for deep neural network in edge computing enabled Internet of Medical Things systems by IEEE Access, Cloud versus Edge Computing, Rethinking Healthcare Infrastructure by TechTales, Edge Computing and Healthcare Systems by ResearchGate, Health Blockage, Blockchain Edge Framework for Reliable Low Latency Digital Healthcare Applications by Census, and How the Edge is Reshaping Healthcare by Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Now we're going to go into the polls. I apologize, I did not launch the poll after our section of blockchain, so there'll be two polls for you. This time, we will first do the poll on blockchain, followed by the poll on cloud computing. So I've just launched the poll. Can blockchain be used in any industry? What do you think? And number two, is blockchain a distributed ledger? Thank you for participating. And I will give another minute for those of you who haven't yet submitted your polls. Wonderful. Wow, more than 60. Thank you for participating. More than half of you have participated. I will end the poll now. Can blockchain be used in any industry? Yes, it can indeed. And is blockchain a distributed ledger? Yes, absolutely. Now, if those of you have answered no, it doesn't matter. We just hope that whatever information that we have shared with you today will be helpful for your future learning. And I will end the poll for blockchain. And now we move on to our poll for cloud computing. Is cloud computing important for industry growth? And number 2, cloud computing is essential for working remotely? What do you think? Yes or no? More than half of you have participated. Thank you for submitting your polls. I'll share the results. Yes, indeed. Cloud computing is important for industry growth across any industry. And yes, cloud computing is essential for remote work. Internet of Things. What is the Internet of Things? IoT. Now, the Internet of Things describes the network of physical objects, things that are embedded with sensors, software, and other technologies used for the purpose of connecting and exchanging data with other devices and systems over the Internet. The Internet of Medical Things is instrumental for the development of products that need less or no human interaction to provide healthcare services. So connected medical devices, equipment, and infrastructure enable multiple applications like automatic disinfection, smart diagnoses, and remote patient management. Cognitive IoMT, a recent development, integrates sensory information, automatic processing, and communication through networks for real-time diagnoses, monitoring, tracking, and disease control. And then we have the Intelligence of Things, which combines the Internet of Things with AI. These items can communicate and operate without human intervention and offer many advantages for healthcare professionals. Now I'm going to show you 2 videos. In the first video, we will understand what is IoT, the Internet of Things, its basic concepts, and how does it influence our lifestyle. And in the next video, we will understand the Intelligence of Things and how AI, artificial intelligence, infused into everyday objects will transform our experience of the world.
The Internet of Things, or IoT, is influencing our lifestyle from the way we react to the way we behave. From air conditioners that you can control with your smartphone, to smart cars providing the shortest route, or your smartwatch which is tracking your daily activities. IoT is a giant network of connected devices. These devices gather and share data about how they are used and the environment in which they are operated. It's all done using sensors. Sensors are embedded in every physical device. It can be your mobile phone, electrical appliances, vehicles, barcode sensors, traffic lights, and almost everything that you come across in day-to-day life. These sensors continuously emit data about the working state of the devices. But the important question is, how do they share this huge amount of data and how do we put this data to our benefit? IoT provides a common platform for all these devices to dump their data and a common language for all the devices to communicate with each other. Data is emitted from various sensors and sent to IoT platforms securely. IoT platform integrates the collected data from various sources. Further analytics is performed on the data and valuable information is extracted as per requirement. Finally, the result is shared with other devices for better user experience, automation, and improving efficiencies. Let us look at a scenario where IoT is doing wonders. In an AC manufacturing industry, both the manufacturing machine and the belt have sensors attached. They continuously send data regarding the machine health and the production specifics to the manufacturer to identify issues beforehand. A barcode is attached to each product before leaving the belt. It contains the product code, manufacturer details, special instructions, etc. The manufacturer uses this data to identify where the product was distributed and track the retailer's inventory. Hence, the manufacturer can make the product running out of stock available. Next, these products are packed and parceled to different retailers. Each retailer has a barcode reader to track the products coming from different manufacturers, manage inventory, check special instructions, and many more. The compressor of air conditioner has an embedded sensor that emits data regarding its health and temperature. This data is analyzed continuously, allowing the customer care to contact you for the repair work in time. This is just one of the million scenarios. We have smart appliances, smart cars, smart homes, smart cities, where IoT is redefining our lifestyle and transforming the way we interact with technologies. The future of IoT industry is huge. Business Insider Intelligence estimates that 24 billion IoT devices will be installed by 2020, and IDC predicts that IoT revenue will reach around 357 billion in 2019, resulting in a lot of job opportunities in the IT industry. Want to become a part of the IoT revolution? Come and master IoT with Edureka.
We've all heard the increasingly used trendy term, the Internet of Things, and how game-changing it's going to be as we extend sensors, miniature sensors, into everyday objects. Everyday objects will start to give us real-time feedback, and the world essentially will come alive. This is the Internet of Things. But what if we evolved the term a little further? What if instead of the Internet of Things, we enter the realm of the intelligence of things? The intelligence of things is where the Internet of Things meets artificial intelligence, because the future of artificial intelligence is senseless unless we extend it into the world of everyday objects. This idea that as we impregnate intelligence into the world of physical things that we inhabit, the world essentially will come alive. This real-time feedback, this interface that will become enlivened with intelligence will essentially will birth a world that will increasingly talk back to us. Now, how this will change human subjectivity, how this will change the human condition, the space of mind in which we dwell, is in the following way. Increasingly, we'll dovetail our minds to the world, right? And as the world starts talking back, the distinction between self and world will start to disappear. The external space, the external world will increasingly start to feel like an extension of our mind, like an extension of our agency, which will bleed over into a world of predictability, a world that will know what we want before we want it, a world of serendipity, a world in which you look for something, you find something else, and you realize that what you found was more conducive to your needs than what you thought you were looking for. We're talking about a world optimized for human creativity and human enterprise, a world that is responsive, a world that is alive, a world that is intelligent. As I imagine, so it becomes, and this is the very essence of magic. Now, you're pumping all this data, you're pumping all this AI into sensors, into the world of everyday objects, and again, you birth a world, the intelligence of things. The mind will have fully turned itself inside out. We will be inhabiting the condensation of human imagination. The nodes in our brain, the neurons will have spilled out into the world. We will cloak the planet in mind and data. This, my friends, is a singularity of mind and meaning. When everything becomes linked with everything else, matter becomes mind. This is the intelligence of things.
Okay, now we're going to look at the impact of Internet of Things on healthcare monitoring devices, such as connected contact lenses, connected inhalers, glucose monitoring, hand hygiene monitoring, heart rate monitoring, Parkinson's disease monitoring, ingestible sensors. I think some of you might find this very, very fascinating. Remote patient monitoring, and lastly, robotic surgery. Now, for connected contact lenses, smart contact lenses provide an opportunity for collecting healthcare data in a very passive and non-intrusive way. And they could also include micro cameras that allow wearers to take pictures with their eyes, which is probably why companies like Google have patented connected contact lenses. So whether they are used to improve health outcomes or for other purposes, smart lenses promise to turn human eyes into a powerful tool for digital interactions. And the next one, number 2, connected inhalers. Conditions such as asthma or COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, they often involve sudden attacks that happen with little warning. So IoT connected inhalers can help patients by monitoring the frequency of attacks, as well as collecting data from the environment to help healthcare providers understand what triggered an attack. Also, connected inhalers can alert patients when they leave their inhalers at home, so they will not be without an inhaler if they happen to have an attack outside the house. The third one, glucose monitoring. For more than 30 million Americans with diabetes, glucose monitoring has traditionally been difficult. Not only is it inconvenient to have to check glucose levels and manually record results, but doing so only reports a patient's glucose levels at the exact time the test is provided. So if levels fluctuate widely, periodic testing may not be sufficient to detect a problem. IoT devices can help address these challenges by providing continuous, automatic monitoring of glucose levels in patients. Number 4, hand hygiene monitoring. Traditionally, there hasn't been a good way to ensure that providers and patients inside the healthcare facility wash their hands properly. But today, many hospitals and other healthcare operations use IoT devices to remind people to sanitize their hands when they enter hospital rooms. The devices can even give instructions on how best to sanitize so as to mitigate a particular risk for a particular patient. The fifth one, heart rate monitoring. Like glucose, monitoring heart rates can be challenging, even for patients who are present in healthcare facilities. Conventional devices for continuous cardiac monitoring used in hospitals require patients to be attached to wired machines constantly, which impairs their mobility. But today, a variety of small IoT devices are available for heart rate monitoring, allowing patients to move around freely while ensuring that their hearts are monitored continuously. And also, these modern devices can deliver accuracy rates of about 90% or better. Number 6, Parkinson's disease monitoring. In order to treat Parkinson's patients most effectively, healthcare providers must be able to assess how the severity of their symptoms fluctuate throughout the day. IoT sensors make this task much easier by continuously collecting data about Parkinson's symptoms. And at the same time, the devices give patients the freedom to go about their lives in their own homes, instead of having to spend long periods in a hospital for observation. 7, ingestible sensors. Collecting data from inside the human body is usually a very massive and highly disruptive affair. No one enjoys having a camera or probe stuck into their digestive tract, for example. But with ingestible sensors, it is possible to collect information from digestive and other systems in a much less invasive way. And they provide insights into stomach pH levels, for example, and can also help pinpoint the source of internal bleeding. These devices must be small enough to be swallowed easily. They must also be able to dissolve or pass through the human body cleanly on their own. And several companies are now working hard on ingestible sensors to meet those criteria. Number 8, remote patient monitoring is the most common application of IoT devices for healthcare. IoT devices can automatically collect health metrics like heart rate, blood pressure, temperature, and even more, from patients who are not physically present in a healthcare facility, eliminating the need for patients to travel to the providers. When an IoT device collects patients' data, it forwards the data to a software application where healthcare professionals and patients can view it. Algorithms may be used to analyze the data in order to recommend treatments or generate alerts. However, a major challenge with remote patient monitoring devices is ensuring that the highly personal data that these IoT devices collect is secure and private. And lastly, for this section, the impact of IoT on robotic surgery. By deploying small internet-connected robots inside the human body, surgeons can perform complex procedures that would be difficult to manage using human hands. At the same time, robotic surgeries performed by small IoT devices can reduce the size of incisions required to perform surgery, leading to a less invasive process and faster healing for patients. These devices must be small and reliable enough to perform surgeries with minimal disruption. They must also be able to interpret complex conditions inside bodies in order to make the right decisions about how to proceed during a surgery. And IoT robots are already being used for surgery, showing that these challenges can be adequately addressed. How do we get started? An introduction to programming the Internet of Things specialization offered by UC Irvine on Coursera. Internet of Things offered by IBM. The Introduction to Internet of Things offered by Stanford School of Engineering. Introduction to the Internet of Things offered by Curtin University. An Introduction to the Internet of Things and Embedded Systems offered by the University of California, Irvine on Coursera. Additional learning materials for you guys. Artificial Intelligence in Internet of Things by ResearchGate. Intelligence in the Internet of Medical Things Era. A systematic review of current and future trends by Science Direct. Intelligence of Things, Opportunities and Challenges by IEEE Explore. The Internet of Things, an overview by ResearchGate, and the Internet of Things, Impact and Implications for Healthcare Delivery by JMIR Publications. Now it is poll time. We have come to the end of the section for Internet of Things. So I'll be launching a poll, just launched. Question 1, IoT is the key driver behind smart home security systems. What do you think? And question 2, IoT describes physical objects that are embedded with sensors. What do you guys think? As I mentioned before, it's just a poll. You get it wrong, it doesn't matter. What's important is that you find some of the content that we're presenting to you today interesting. And please, if there's something that that has captured your special attention, you're very, very interested in it, go for it. Because it can open doors to other subjects of interest that you never thought that you could possibly be passionate about. Okay, more than half of you have participated. Thank you so much. I am going to end the poll and I'll share the results with you. IoT is the key driver behind smart home security systems. Indeed, it is. And number 2, IoT describes physical objects that are embedded with sensors. Yes, it is. That is the case also. Thank you for participating in the poll. And we come to our final section for today's webinar. Robotic process automation. Healthcare providers are digitizing patient information so that it can be stored electronically and accessed online by other doctors and the patients themselves. But the process of extracting data from legacy systems and then having to enter all that data into the digital system doesn't have to be taxing and tedious. In fact, it can be automated by robotic process automation bots, RPA bots. Intelligent automation, IA, which is a combination of RPA and AI, is capable of simulating human interaction. It can even understand and respond to implied client communications just based on historical data. So in this video, we will understand what is IPA, how is it defined, how can RPA assist a business, extracting data with optical character recognition, the benefits of having an intelligent RPA solution, the benefits of having a low-code environment, benefits of having concurrency support, and benefits of having an RPA as a service solution. Enjoy the video.
Hey everyone, today let's talk about RPA, or Robotic Process Automation. In my opinion, the definition lies more in the terms process automation and less in actual robots. But RPA is changing the software world, much like physical robots have changed the world that we live in every day. For example, take a vending machine. There's not a person standing there sorting all your money and vending the goods. It's automated because it's a tedious task. Now, RPA is doing the same thing in the software world for tedious or repetitive tasks. But for things like IT, or even business process management, RPA is not going to help. And that's because these require more specialized skills. So where can RPA assist? Well, let's start with an example inspired by one of my favorite TV shows. Let's say we've got a disgruntled employee. We're going to call him Pete. Now, Pete has to take a number of documents that are stored, digitally, and then convert them into forms that he then has to file. So this is a very tedious task, so he has to take all of these forms, write them out manually, and then finally actually go and file them. So this process, let's say he has to do this 10,000 times. That means Pete's going to be pretty unhappy about this because this is a very tedious, repetitive task. It's something that with RPA he could actually automate. So let's see what Pete would do if he wanted to set up an automation to do this flow. So the first thing he has to do is identify what's the data, where is it coming from. So in this particular example, the data is already in a computer somewhere, and let's say that it's coming in through email, or maybe his coworker Kelly is manually inputting them from phone calls with customers. So they take the customer forms, they put them into the computer. Now Pete has to extract data. Right, so that's going to be the first thing that RPA can help with. So with OCR, or optical character recognition, along with the data that's in the computer, Pete's able to pull out data, and what he's going to do is actually extract that data for further processing. So that data can be things like the customer's name and the info. Let's say in the customer form, it's the complaints that make up that information. So taking that data, so the next thing Pete's going to do is, let's say, validate it. So make sure that none of the data is corrupt and all of the data looks good. Finally, he has to input it into a digital form. So he puts it into a digital form, and finally, he sends it off to a printer. Now, at this phase, all Pete really has to do is take the final forms that are printed out and then file them, and that's going to be a whole lot easier to do than doing this manually for all 10,000 customer complaint forms that are coming in. So that's where RPA can really assist with tedious, repetitive tasks that require things like clicking through user interfaces, copying and pasting data, or kind of other things like optical character recognition where you have to extract data. So when choosing an RPA solution, which is going to enable you to do this type of automation, I'd say there's 4 major things that you really need to be looking for. Now, the first one I'm going to start with, you want to make sure that your RPA tool is intelligent. Now, in this particular flow, Pete used a lot of capabilities. So he used OCR, optical character recognition. In addition, he used different data manipulation techniques. So this enables Pete to do things like extract, input data, validate it. And finally, he even had a function to be able to print something out, create a physical piece of paper from a software-based automation. That's just scratching the tip of what robot RPA can do today. So another thing RPA can do is things like AI or machine learning to train a model to recognize not just simple characters, but maybe even images. So that's something that Pete might want to augment this automation with in the future. So that's one thing you want to make sure is that your RPA tool is intelligent. Number 2, low code. So RPA is really only going to be effective if the users that are creating this automation find that process to be easy. Otherwise, management might choose to actually just have their employees do it manually if creating this type of automation was too time-consuming. So a low-code RPA environment is going to enable Pete to do things like drag and drop components and have minimal touch to actually get this automation created end-to-end. Number 3, concurrency. So this is going to be the ability to run multiple robots at the same time, multiple automation tasks. So for the 10,000 customer complaint forms, say this task takes 15 seconds, that's a lot of time. So imagine if you could launch multiple robots and divvy up that work. Well, you could get through the task at hand much more quickly. So an RPA solution should have concurrency support. And the last one I want to mention here is RPA as a service. Now, an as-a-service model is going to come with a number of advantages. For one, it's going to give you shorter time to value. And that's because Pete doesn't have to worry about spinning up his own infrastructure, installing the software, managing that environment. He can just log in and start building these automations right away. That brings me to my next point, currency. So not concurrency, but currency, which is keeping up with the latest versions that are available. So RPA and the world of RPA is changing quite rapidly. And so with some of the intelligent capabilities enabled within RPA, say a new version of OCR comes out and he wants to use it, well, with an RPA as a service capability, you can get updates more quickly. You're more current with the latest versions of software. So you get to use those latest components, and maybe OCR 2.0 kind of helps fix some of the bugs with pulling data from customer complaint forms. Finally, I think the last one that I want to mention here is that it allows you to collaborate. So imagine that Pete builds this automation, publishes it, and then now wants to share it with the Nashua branch of his company so that they can take advantage of the same process to automate this flow and kind of file customer complaint forms. So as a service environments generally are multi-tenant and enable you to collaborate with your coworkers. So this was a quick overview of RPA. RPA tools are quickly growing in popularity, and so is the scope of what RPA is able to actually automate. Now, if you like this video, have any questions or comments, be sure to drop a like or a comment below. As always, stay tuned and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Thank you.
So now we are looking at robotic process automation and its impact on these following areas: better employee satisfaction, better patient experience, claim management, data entry, elimination of human error, increased appointment turnout, patient scheduling, reducing costs, and regulatory compliance. So let's look at better employee satisfaction. Now, assigning your workforce to tedious, repetitive tasks may harm employee satisfaction and can lead to higher turnover. This leads to more recruiting and onboarding, during which employees are less productive. So RPA can boost employee satisfaction and reduce turnovers. Number two, better patient experience. The RPA bots streamline front office support and makes it easy for the patient support team to manage patient queries. RPA solution in the front and the back office allows healthcare providers to offer a higher quality of customer service. Number 3, claim management. After a healthcare service is provided, billing takes time due to manual and repetitive tasks in the claim management process. Claim management contains processes such as inputting, processing, and evaluating documents and data. Along with automating time-intensive tasks, RPA-led claim management can also eliminate human errors during claim processing. The fourth one, data entry, data migration, and extraction. The healthcare industry is reliant on paper documents and requires digital transformation. Healthcare providers are digitizing patient information so that it can be stored electronically and accessed online by other doctors and the patients themselves. The process of extracting data from legacy systems and entering those into the digital system can be automated by RPA bots. And then when migration of data for another purpose, such as, for example, medical research is needed, then another RPA bot can handle this migration process. Number 5, elimination of human error. In a rules-based process, bots apply rules that are programmed. As long as the programmer does not make any errors while writing the code, then your rules-based process will be error-free. Number 6, increased appointment turnout. Thanks to the automation of patient scheduling and appointment reminders sent by RPA bots, patients are less likely to forget their appointments so that doctors can provide care to more patients, thus increasing productivity and efficiency. 7, patient scheduling. With the involvement of RPA technology, patients can schedule their appointments on their own without the intervention of hospital employees. This application can also improve customer relations, since patients can arrange an appointment much faster. Number 8, reducing costs. The price of RPA software is just a small fraction of what healthcare providers pay to employees for manual tasks. According to a study done by CAQH, which is the Council for Affordable Quality Healthcare, the healthcare industry could save up to $13.3 billion if administrative tasks are automated in the revenue cycle. And lastly, regulatory compliance. RPA enables healthcare providers to track and document each process step in structured log files so that the company can comply with external audits. And since these processes are handled by bots, RPA enhances data confidentiality as well. How do we get started? Beginner's Guide to RPA, offered by Automation Anywhere on Udemy. Getting started with RPA, so both the Beginner's Guide and the Getting Started Guide is both found by Automation Anywhere. Introduction to RPA, Automation Anywhere, offered by LinkedIn Learning. Robotic Process Automation, an RPA overview, offered by Brian Lam on Udemy. RPA Lifecycle, Introduction, Discovery, and Design, offered by Automation Anywhere on Coursera. Additional learning materials. Robotic Process Automation in Healthcare, a review by ResearchGate. How RPA can streamline hospital capacity monitoring for COVID-19 by Automation Anywhere. Robotic Process Automation sweeps across healthcare industry by machine design. 6 real-world use cases for robotic process automation in healthcare by SciGen. And what is robotic process automation by Edureka? So now I'm going to launch the final poll for this webinar. Question 1, RPA is the use of computer software robots to handle repetitive tasks, yes or no? And number 2, I want to learn more about RPA. So I'll just give maybe half a minute more for the responses to stream in. Almost half of you have participated. That's wonderful. More than half of you have participated. Thank you so much for submitting your polls. So I'm just going to end the poll now, and let's see the results. Indeed, RPA is the use of computer software robots to handle repetitive tasks. And I want to learn more about RPA. For the 92% of you who are interested, thank you so much. I hope that the learning resources is something that will capture your special attention and that you would have a look at. And for those of you who are not interested in RPA, it doesn't matter. I hope that the other information that we have shared with you so far in the past 2.5 hours have been useful for you. Now let's interact. I'm curious to hear from you, for those of you who wish to share, who would like to share today. How else would you like to see innovation in your field of study or sector? Do type your comments in the chat box. How else would you like to see innovation in your field of study or sector? For example, I am very, very passionate about mental health. And so I hope that AI technology can be increasingly harnessed in this sector. Interestingly, in a recent study done by RAND, it found that during the height of the pandemic, a significant amount of people who used telehealth services were doing so due to mental health issues and not for physical conditions. There are already well-received AI bots and apps for depression. And while these apps cannot diagnose or treat a mental health condition at the moment, in the future, this could change as the technology has the potential to obtain massive amounts of data. And using these data, we can find new patterns to give us insights into the development of mental health issues and preventive solutions. Joshua, thank you so much for typing into the chat box and for sharing with us. As a graduating engineering student, Joshua says that he hopes to have more opportunities in our country with AI and robotics. That is wonderful. And let's move on to the second question. Now, what skill sets do you think are required to achieve the innovation you have mentioned? What skill sets do you think are required? If you have anything to share, you can just put it into the chat box. It's completely up to you. Apart from skill set, I think mindset is extremely important. And when we look at wanting to accomplish our goals, what researchers have found very interestingly, is that having a goal is important, but psychologists have found that what helps a lot is actually having an unattachment to the outcome. So the less attached, it's not that you don't care about the goal, you care about your final goal, but the less attached you are to the outcome, and the more present you are able to remain, and the more focused you are able to remain on the journey, the more fun you're going to have in the process of learning, and the better your outcomes. So present moment awareness and being able to focus in the moment is extremely helpful. And I've seen this a lot. I've seen this happen to a lot of people when they are so desperate to want to achieve a certain outcome, and they're really, really desperate to have to achieve something. They lose focus. They're not as present. They're not as mindful in the moment on the task. And this ends up affecting the quality of their project and the eventual outcome. Number 3, if you have experience in any of the innovations mentioned in today's training, do share your tips and your tricks with us. So if you have any experience in any of the innovations and you have any tips and any tricks to share, do share it with us. And if you have any additional free learning on innovation in this sector to share with us, do share it with us as well. Now, if you're typing in your chat box, you can continue to type. We will check it in the moment. First, I would like to go through additional reading materials for you that you may be interested in. Additional reading for Women in Innovation. Inspiring Women in Innovation, Paving the Way for New Generations by Ioya. Latest Women in Innovation Awards announced, supporting female engineers by the manufacturer. The gender effect on a firm's innovative activities in the emerging economies by MDPI. 2020 Watch List, Women in Innovation by Inside Outside Innovation, and Women in Innovation, Understanding Barriers to Innovation by Ubiquity. Now, additional free training. Our topic was Empowering Women Through Technology for Sustainable Goals 5 and 17. Now, Wi-Fi needs to run smoothly, just like electricity and water, to promote financial independence for women while staying at home in the COVID-19 pandemic. But how can we achieve this? So to access this free training, all you need to do is sign up for an account at www.lovesback.com. That's www.lovesback.com. Click your account profile on the top right corner of the web page, and you will see the Learning Resources button on the yellow banner, which is on our screenshot below. And look for the course entitled Empowering Women Through Technology for Sustainable Goals 5 and 17. Signing up for an account is free to get these additional free trainings at lovesback.com. And if you have any questions and answers, do let us know in the chat box. We'll be here to answer any of your questions and any of your answers. Thank you so much for participating today in our focus session. This is our last webinar. And I would also like to thank UNESCO for their support. Yes, Joshua, there will be a certificate after the completion of the survey, which I will go into shortly. So yes, and this is the survey form via the link. So do click on the link and fill out the survey. And once completion of the survey, we will prepare your certificate of attendance. Our moderators have placed the link in the chat box. So do go to the link, go to the chat box, click on the link. Thank you for filling in the survey, and we will get your certificates ready. Great, I trust that the link is okay and everyone has opened the link and is filling in the survey. That is great. Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation, for joining us in this webinar today. And once again, I would like to thank UNESCO for supporting this project with us. Thank you, Carissa, so much for joining in today. And if there's no further questions and everyone has accessed the link with no difficulty and everything's good, we hope that the information today has been useful. Thank you for showing up and for being with us this afternoon. And we will end the webinar. Have a wonderful week, everyone. I hope that the information that we have shared today has been useful for you. And if there's anything that has been of interest, do check out the links and the learning resources. Have a wonderful week.